at Rancho Park at the synagogue there, where 72 Holocaust survivors from all over the world were reunited after 50 years. Way back in 1939, about 150 Jewish children from Germany, Poland, and Austria were given refuge in France by Jewish organizations. In 1941, they were taken to the U.S.
The feeling of meeting old friends again. Some of us don't recognize each other at first after 47 or 48 years, but we start talking and then you remember, and of course we have many pictures up here of how we looked when we were little kids. There are a few of us who live in Los Angeles, and some of these people have been my friends forever, for 48, 49 years. Others I haven't seen since 1941, and there are even a few here I never met before, but they came to the homes after I left.
Some were left behind in France and were murdered by the Nazis. More than 150 made it to American foster homes. Virtually all their parents perished in the death camps, and their reunion tonight was accomplished by the Simon Wiesenthal Center, and those folks, of course, over the years have done marvelous.
72 people who survived the Holocaust as children met for their first reunion in almost 50 years. At first glance, this could be any group getting together with family and friends after long separation, but for this group, the pictures tell the story, a story of children sent to France to escape the oncoming Holocaust. Their friends were scattered again, not to meet until tonight.
And somehow there was an infinity, and we immediately, it was like we were never apart. But for the majority, I have to look for the names to recognize the faces.
Most of the children were from Germany, Poland, and Austria. Their parents were interned or sent to the death camps. In 1941, as German armies swept France, almost 200 of the children were sent to the United States.
By the tree, I had one of me. I ain't going nowhere with it. Right there. That's what the first children, little bit.
for me to greet all of you here tonight in beautiful Southern California and to welcome you to this, our 50-year reunion of OSE children. Just a short time ago in the sanctuary next door, the Havdalah service was concluded. And that, of course, signifies the end of the Shabbat and the beginning of a new week. And I can't think of a better way to begin a new week than right here in the company of so many of you old friends. The turnout tonight is just absolutely fantastic. As I look around the room here, it's just wonderful to see so many of you. I just don't have the superlatives to describe it. It exceeds any and all of our previous expectations. Just a short time ago, I was given some statistics regarding the attendance, and I thought it would be interesting to you if I passed these along. To begin with, we have guests here tonight from Israel, we have guests from Mexico, and we have guests from 15 states in the United States. Of course, we have contingents from all over California, from the Bay Area, San Diego, Riverside, Corona, and Los Angeles. But also 15 other states are represented here tonight, and I'll list those for you. They're Colorado, Connecticut, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Texas, and Washington, D.C. Really a terrific turnout. Ever since our good friend Henry Schuster announced about 14 months ago his intention to promote this reunion, there's been an ever-growing sense of excitement and a feeling of enthusiasm among a few of us here in California. As the time approached and the letters came in about 2 months ago and phone calls came in, became apparent that it wasn't just a few of us here, but all of you here tonight, and even many who could not make it tonight, but who again heard from us and found us again, or vice versa, and all of us shared in this excitement. I do have to tell you, though, that all of our excitement and all of our enthusiasm combined could not possibly match that of Henry Schuster. Henry has been so excited and so enthused, he's already planning the next reunion, 50 years from tonight. Henry wants you to mark the date down, March 25th, 2039. He told me to tell you that by that time you will have reached an age, if you don't mark it down tonight, you're just not going to remember it. A little while ago when we were still upstairs and everybody was munching on hors d'oeuvres, I walked around and I kept listening in on conversations, and there were many interesting conversations going on. But I couldn't help but be reminded of a line by the late comedian Dick Shawn, who said, "Tonight I met an old friend of mine, a very, very good old friend whom I hadn't seen for many years. The poor guy, he aged so much, he couldn't even recognize me." And that's what I kept hearing tonight. People looked at each other and they said, "You look familiar, but who are you?" These were just the husbands and wives talking. Anyway, we made up our minds right then and there that the one thing we have to do tonight is to give each and every person who was in an OSE home the opportunity to introduce him or herself to the rest of the group. Now, I'll call you up later on, and you can introduce yourself any way you like, or ad lib if you care to do that. If you prefer or feel more comfortable following some simple format, I will give you my simple format. But do me one favor, use my format, do not use my name. Your name and your background. Well, my name is Aaron Lowe. 50 years ago, it was Adolf Löw. I came from Berlin, Germany, and in France, I lived in the homes in Montmorency, in Aubonne, and in Brou-Vernay. Currently, I reside in the greater Los Angeles area. It's greater than any other place I ever resided in. Now, that's the minimum that you should tell us about yourself. In other words, who are you today? Who were you then? Where did you come from? Which homes did you live in? And where do you live today? If you care to add something to that, one of the things that comes to mind is tell us perhaps when you came here or how you came here. In my own case, since I'm not going to get that opportunity to tell you later, I came on what was called the second transport, which arrived in Staten Island on September 1st, 1941. Like many of you here tonight, I crossed the Atlantic on that wonderful Portuguese luxury liner, the SS Muzinho. For those who didn't know, the Musigno was an 8,000-ton freighter which plowed the Atlantic in 14 short days from Lisbon to New York, and it was converted to transport passengers, primarily refugees, from Lisbon to New York. The ship that I came on carried 600 refugees. You may recall, though, on the Musigno, they had 2 semi-private cabins, and I was very lucky. Art Kern and I were able to share one of those cabins. We shared them with 298 other men, women, and children. And the reason it was semi-private is because there was another such cabin which had 300 refugees which stayed on board. But please don't misunderstand me. I don't have any complaints. I have always been cognizant of the fact that I left Nazi-infested Europe at a time when things perhaps were bad, but long before they got so much worse, as all of you know, indescribably worse. And the day that I arrived in New York Harbor on the SS Musigno will always be remembered by me as one of the finest days in my entire life. Well, now that you've been away from the hors d'oeuvres for about 15 minutes, I can hear some of you saying, so where's the meal? Let me briefly tell you what the agenda is for tonight. But before I do that, I would like to introduce a few people to make sure that all of you know them. There are 2 couples who, more than anyone else, were responsible for making this reunion possible. They did a disproportionately large share of the work, beginning with planning and organizing and continuing with correspondence and with telephone calls and anything that had to be done. Most of the work was done by these 2 couples. Now, I'd like them both, I will call on both to stand up. However, this is a time to mention to you, if you don't know, that one of the people, Henry Schuster, who has been probably the most enthused of all of us and who did probably, along with 3 other people, the most of anybody to make this reunion possible, is unable to be here tonight. Henry was hospitalized this week, but I do have good news. Henry is recovering and doing fairly well, quite well. Anyway, I would like to introduce Anita Schuster, representing herself and Henry. Would you please stand up, Anita? And Art and Trudy Kern. In just a few minutes, I'm going to call on Art Kern to come up here and say a few words, and he's going to be followed by Henry Schuster. It's a surprise. And subsequent to that, we're going to have an address by Rabbi Cooper of the Wiesenthal Center, and that will be followed by the benediction and the hamotzi, and that should give the caterer the hint that we're ready to eat again. Actually, we've agreed that we will begin being served approximately 9 o'clock. And during the meal, as we have convenient pauses or between courses, I'm going to start calling you up so that you can come up here and identify yourselves. And subsequent to that, we have several other people, our own OSE people, who have asked to address the group briefly, so I'll be calling on them at that time. That should still leave us enough time tonight and continuing on for 5 hours tomorrow to just mingle and find old friends and renew old acquaintances. And by all means, look at the nice posters and pictures and memorabilia displayed, mostly in the back of the room. And I would like to mention one other thing right now, these beautiful posters of many of the homes in France, and over 70 of these pictures, the 5x7 pictures were done for us by one of the children of an OSE child, Mr. Jeff Green, who's the son of Eric and Eileen Green. So now, without any further ado, I'd like to call on Art Kern to tear himself away and come up here.
Thank you, Aaron. Aaron and I have been very fortunate that we kept in touch from the time. Aaron and I. I know this works. Well, that's all right. Aaron and I have been very fortunate insofar that ever since we arrived in the second transport in September '41, we've been keeping in touch with each other. And slowly over the years, we have been finding several of the other people, which I call my family, the ones who live here in Los Angeles. We get together and socialize quite a bit. Now regarding the reunion, how did this whole thing get started? Approximately a year ago, in February '88, five of the couples who live here in LA were invited to the sixth couple, the Rosenblum's house. Amongst the people, myself and Henry Schuster, and Henry said suddenly, you know, really we should get going on our 50-year union, and everybody cheered. And then Henry pointed at me and said, and I think Art Kern ought to be the chairman. And everybody but me cheered. Anyway, that's how we got started. Initially, we started with those people where we knew who they lived. There were 30 of us, and I got approximately 30 letters out. And they were mailed out in August of '88. From those initial letters, and with the publicity and help from the Wiesenthal Center, we received letters and/or phone calls from all over the United States, as well as Canada, Mexico, England, Germany, Australia, Israel, and Ecuador. 119 people responded. As a matter of fact, the Bodek brothers from Mexico and Asher Hirsch from Israel are here tonight. Then, the enthusiasm in these responses that we received, they were awesome. After we passed 50 responses, it became obvious that one night just wouldn't do this, and we set up the second, it just wouldn't be enough time for this occasion, and we set up a second meeting. We had a planning meeting at the Schuster's house and divided up the work. The Jamners, the Lowe's, the Eisenbergs, the Greens, the Schusters, and the Rosenblums, and my wife and I all took responsibility for different aspects in organizing the reunion. In addition, the Jamners, the Schusters, the Rosenblums volunteered to sponsor tomorrow's luncheon, which is on March 26th at the Jamners' house. However, it is you and the overwhelming enthusiasm shown by all of you that made this reunion possible. Almost everyone who knew somebody informed us. From Bert Cohen in Illinois, we got Fred Solomon in Indiana. From someone, I don't remember who, I got Klaus Bodek in Mexico. From Klaus Bodek in Mexico, we got Ernie Kapstein in Maryland. From Jerry Girard, we got a whole list of people from the Chaban, who, by the way, not long ago had a reunion in France of their own. We also received other letters from people who are still searching for their loved ones. Lily Amzel from Canada. Her husband was a rabbi at the home in Brubanay for a short time. She would like those who remember her and her husband to write to her. Mr. Aaron Lowe already has done so. Herbert Ozer from Philadelphia is looking for his brother's 4 children. Their name is Osherowitz, and he's hoping that one of us recognizes the name. He knows they were in France somewhere. He does not know if they were in the OSE homes. Sophie Barrow, née Singer, from Australia, is inquiring if anyone has more information about her brother Ben Ozinger, who was deported to Auschwitz in August 1931 from Montantin. She would also love to hear from any OSE children who know her. Henry Schuster and I have already written her. In fact, I got a response from her today, and it was heart-wrenching. Mary Gauthier from Louisiana just wants to find out who she is. Her daughter is here tonight, and she may be asking you questions. We have a poster of a little girl, and if anyone can identify her, please let us know. She thinks she was in an OSE home and came on the Serpa Pinta in June 1942 when she was 3 years old. Like I say, her daughter is here tonight and may want to address you later on. Trudy, my wife, compiled a scrapbook, the happening of the 50th reunion, which contains some of these letters. Feel free to peruse the scrapbook, which is on the table in the back. In addition, a little bit later, we're going to, my wife and I compiled a packet which consists of several things that are going to be given out to all the OSE, quote, children. A list of the OSE children found and contacted for the 50th reunion, names, addresses, telephone numbers. A pamphlet called Les Enfants de Montantin, which is a story written by the French Jewish Droit movement and given to me by a Montantin caretaker when my wife and I returned to France in 1980. It tells a story about us, except it was The story was found by the people who are there now, approximately 20 years later, found out what happened there in 1941 and wrote a story about it. It's in French, and you'll see that in the booklet. A list of children arriving on the 3 transports in the U.S. in June and September of 1941 on the Musino and the Cerro Pinto, from which Friede Meyer, I believe, a while back, obtained from the archives from the Quake organization. There's also a map showing how to get Fred Jamner's house for tomorrow, and an article written by Ernst Papanek, which appeared approximately 15 years in the Saturday Evening Post, called The Boy Who Survived Auschwitz. The boy in the story, by the way, is Ernst Koppel, and he lives in Israel today. Although we in Los Angeles initiated this 50-year reunion, it is your phenomenal enthusiasm and your presence that made this reunion possible, and for that, I thank you.
Thank you, Art. And now we'd like to call on Anita Schuster to come up here.
I'm going to try and bring you Henry tonight. This afternoon, I was very fortunate to find a tape of him rehearsing his speech. So I'm going to put it on, and I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you, Aaron. I personally welcome all of you to this wonderful affair. Thank you for coming, and I hope you will enjoy this evening get-together as much as we here in Los Angeles had in planning it. Our spouses and offsprings deserve as much credit as we, the former OSE children, do in planning and working towards the reality of this reunion. I want to thank Rabbi Cooper and his staff of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, especially Ava Shapiro, for giving us the marvelous publicity that we received throughout the world. Now, I want to inject a little personal feeling. When I came to the States, I ended up in Shreveport, Louisiana, living with distant relatives. I lost touch with all of you. Upon my discharge from the U.S. Army in 1946, I ended up in New York City to attend college. Through some personal investigations, I located my friend Joseph Moses. Through Joe, I found Fred Strauss. Fred was my best friend from 1936 through 1941 until we came to the States. Our friendship blossomed, and we were as close again as we were as children. In fact, Fred, Jean, Anita and I went on our honeymoon together. We were married on the same weekend. In 1949, Anita, our four-month-old son Alan, and I relocated to Illinois to start a new life. As we were all struggling to find our niche in life, preoccupied with trying to support our families, and had little time for anything else. During this period, I again lost contact with all of you until 1978. In 1969, I relocated my family from Illinois to Los Angeles. But it wasn't until 1978 that I got the yearning to find my past. Through Joe Moses again, I found Fred in New Jersey. Fred met Anita and me in Manhattan for lunch. He brought with him a copy of the book, Out of the Fire. That was the first time that I knew of the existence of the book. I went to the publishers and bought all the remaining copies. I read the book and became very depressed that I allowed myself to lose contact with my life's past. As I knew Ernst Papanek had passed away, I wrote a letter to Helena, his widow, in care of the publisher, asking her if she knew the whereabouts of any of you. I got a quick response giving me Elfrieda Schluss, formerly Elfrieda Meyer's address, as well as Ernst Walfer. I wrote to both of them. I felt like a weight was lifted from my shoulders that now I alone did not have to remember everything. I had others to share our memories. On Elfrieda and Eddie's visit to California, Anita and I met them, and we spent a marvelous afternoon reacquainting ourselves. The feeling was that we found a member of our lost family. In 1979, Aaron Lowe and Art Kern conceived the idea of a reunion in Los Angeles. There was a nucleus of approximately 6 living in Southern California. To reach others, they decided to place an ad in the San Francisco paper looking for any former OSE children. As they knew that Ernst Walfer was placed in the Bay Area upon our arrival in the States, they put his name in the ad. An acquaintance of Ernst saw the ad and told him about it. Ernst contacted Aaron immediately and gave him my address, as I had shortly before that contacted him. As I had an unlisted telephone number, they sent me a written invitation to the 40th reunion to be held at Aaron and Allie's home. They wrote their telephone number on the invitation. When I read the invitation aloud to Anita and Renee, they both said, "Go ahead and call." My response was, "Why should I? I'm going." They insisted that I call. "Aren't you excited? This is what you've been wanting for years." I called and spoke with Aaron, and we reacquainted ourselves. Aaron is 3 years younger than I am. At age 14, this is a big difference. When he told me his name was Adolf Loeb, I then placed him and remembered him as one of the younger ones. Aaron told me that Art Kern, his former name, Oswald Kernberg, was on his way at this moment to my house. Aaron suggested that I should greet him casually and say as I answered the door, "Hello, Art." I couldn't keep a straight face when Art came. The next 3 days, I couldn't sleep, eat, or concentrate as I was so excited. When we met at the Lowe's the following Saturday, we couldn't stop talking. Anita told me that I was like a child with a new toy. I found my family. Through the years following, we here are like a large family. We see each other socially, and very often are all good, and we see each other socially, and we are all good friends. I hope that the feeling that I had that first night when we met will be within all of you tonight. And thank you for coming. And now, Rabbi Cooper.
What's up, everyone? First, on behalf of Rabbi Heyer, the founder and dean of the Wiesenthal Center, I'd like to bring special greetings to a wonderful group of people. This evening is a testimony to the triumph and the power of love and of hope. And I also want to recognize the special efforts of members of our staff, two of whom are here tonight, Ava Shapiro, Michelle Eisenman, who saw to it that every conceivable address, every Jewish newspaper throughout the Western Hemisphere and Europe and Australasia knew about this reunion, and we were very proud to play a very small role in helping to bring some people back together. In addition, tonight, I believe on at least 2 or 3 of the local TV stations and 1 radio station and some newspapers, the legacy of this wonderful group and your achievements will go out to the community here in Los Angeles, and if there is anyone, which I doubt, that between Aaron, Henry, and Art, in Southern California at least, who perhaps hasn't heard about this, then the message will go forward. I think like everyone else here tonight, listening to the incredible plea of one of your compatriots from Louisiana, who simply is sending a message of, who am I, reached deep down and touched me very deeply as well. The Wiesenthal Center, and I think all of us in the generations that have come forward, understand, without fully comprehending, that the key to who we are lies in those very bitter years that we now know as the Holocaust. We are standing today right in between, midway point between Parshat Zachor, which relates the story of Amalek, and before you'll be able to fully digest this meal, we'll have to start thinking about matzah and Passover. And I think that those two guideposts very much summarize the experiences of this special group. Amalek was just one of the enemies the Jewish people has had over the centuries, but we remember what they've done to us because they particularly went after the weak, the elderly, the humble, and the children, those who could not fight back. And so it is appropriate that in our times we appropriate the term Amalek to the Nazis and their supporters. During the first 10 years of the Nazi regime, the United States left 400,000 names or components in the immigration files unfulfilled. Those of you, and certainly myself, weren't around or were too young to know that the 1930s was a time in which the world didn't care about refugees. It was a time in which there were quotas and in which the world turned a cold heart to the powerless, suffering Jews. And during those first 10 years, from 1933 to the end of 1942, 400,000 members of Jewish families and others who were going to be victimized or were victimized by the Nazis, who could have legally entered this country, were not permitted to do so. Unfortunately, those turned out to be 400,000 death warrants. And so tonight, when we celebrate really a very special miracle, everyone sitting here is a miracle, including the children of those people who miraculously were able to come out of Europe. It is both a very heartwarming and invigorating and reassuring evening of Jewish redemption and Jewish renewal. It is also a time, a very painful time as well for each of us to recall the members of our families who did not get out, the sacrifice of the families to see to it that at least one, in some cases 2 or 3 of their children, would make it out of the hell which was Europe to create new lives in the free world, in Eretz Israel, in the United States, in Canada, in Australia, and elsewhere, in Mexico. And as usual, when you have a Jewish event, you have the happiness and you have the sadness side by side. That is really the ultimate answer to the puzzle of who are we? We are Jews and we care. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Cooper. I should mention and emphasize that the Wiesenthal Center, Rabbi Cooper and his staff, have been extremely helpful to us, especially in finding many of the people here today and so many throughout the world through various news wires and publications in the Jerusalem Post and other Jewish newspapers. So we thank you very much, and your staff as well. And we're very happy that you're here tonight. And now I'd like to make one announcement. I said earlier that there were 72 OSE children here today. Actually, there were 70, and the other 2 were understaffed. They were not children. They were understaffed. They were in Aubonne, and they were in Montentin-Chevrette, and they're here with us tonight, and this young couple actually is going to celebrate their 60th wedding anniversary next week. And I'd like all of us to give them a hand, and Mr. and Mrs. Connor. And Mrs. Connor, don't sit down. I heard that you want to say a few words to us. Can you come up here?
I'm really very honored and very happy to be here on this occasion. I know you all as you were children. When you left for America, no one knew what the future would be. You came here, adjusting to a new country, to a new language, to living with strangers. And I see you now. The little children I once knew became happy and successful. Adults all on your own. But today, you are all my children. I love you all very much.
We have just a few minutes. I'd like to make a few other announcements. People that couldn't be here tonight, but who have asked that their regards be given to us. We had, first of all, Gus and Hannah Papanek was supposed to be here tonight, and they had a last-minute emergency and couldn't come, and they send their best regards to everybody here who knows them and remembers them. We also had heard from Joseph Billette, who used to be in Montmorency, Aubonne, and Montentin, and he sends his best. He couldn't be here tonight. And also from Joseph Moses, who also was in those same homes in Montmorency, in Aubonne, and in Montentin. We also had a telegram from Albert and Gertrude Eisermann. They were in Montmorency, Aubonne, and in Brou-Vernay. And they want me to tell you that they're sending their best wishes to all of us, from themselves, their 4 children, and their 13 grandchildren. She couldn't be here. Oh, okay. One other person who didn't make it tonight, and I'll read this to you, says, "Hello, everybody. So sorry that I could not make it to the reunion, but we'll surely make it the next time we get together." Well, we'll have to plan one before 50. Please enjoy my pictures of Brou-Vernay 1940. Please also tell Renee Schuster-Weiss that I will send her my story later if she would like. Best regards, Susan Hilsenrod. Right, and now I'd like to call on Dr. Morris Eisenberg for the benediction and for the Hamotzi.
I'm not one of the OSE children, but I'm an OSEer by marriage, and I feel like one of you. The names Montmorency, Aubonne, Majolier are very familiar to me. I think I know that God must have been watching over all of us who are here tonight, because so many OSE children, as well as others, perished in the Holocaust. May God continue to watch over us and our children and our grandchildren. So when our grandchildren are grown, the time will have arrived when, in the words of Isaiah, They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not take up sword against nation. They shall never again know war. Now, before we eat, I would like to say Hamotzi.
Well, you can have your first bite.
Mr. Asher Hirsch, who is here from Israel with us, would like to have some pictures taken with the children that were with him on the Mazzino, the children who were in the home of Bovina and Bouvenet. I wasn't there, what do I know? And Oban. He'd like you to see him so he can get together and take a picture for some of the people who couldn't be with him tonight.
Why don't you do it outside then?
And we'll do it right out here in the lobby.
Beautiful.
You measure okay, let me get one.
I think I started something I can't stop.
If somebody would take a picture of one piece.
Oh, one more. Okay. Just stand up. Two more.
Oh, you guys gotta go down.
Yeah, somebody get the shot to measure the picture. Oh, you already see that picture. The shot. Okay, now.
I understand the Yamnas are not the only hosts, the Schusters, and and Rosenblums are joint hosts for this afternoon, and I'm certain that you will be pleased to know that before coming here, I visited Henry Schuster in the hospital. Baruch Hashem, he's sitting up, he's doing nicely. Only thing they have to find out why he has an extra heartbeat, and let's
Good.
hope that with God's help,
Because he
we'll
has a
have
big heart,
Jewish
that's
labor.
why.
And as I left a little note with him that I look forward to see him fully recuperated and to start thinking about the 60th anniversary get together in the best of health. Permit me just to share a short thought with you in connection with the portion of the week that we will be reading next Shabbat. Next Shabbat is Parshat HaChodesh, is the fourth of the series of special Shabbaton before Purim and before Pesach. And we have there a very interesting episode where this, as Rashi tries to explain, the moon was one of the things which Moshe Rabbeinu did not understand. And it's difficult for us to understand how could it be that Moses, who learned the Torah from God himself, shouldn't understand something. But Rashi teaches us there that God showed him the moon in fire so that he should know exactly how the moon works, that it starts out very small, it evolves into a full moon, and then it becomes smaller, and again it seems to disappear, and then it starts all over again. And our sages teach us that the moon actually exemplifies the Jewish people. And our gathering here this afternoon and last night is testimony to this interpretation. There was a time when it seemed that our moon completely would disappear. Everyone thought that we would never come out of this. And thank God, the mere fact that we assembled here today is an indication that there is hope, not only for us, for the entire Jewish people, for the entire world. Let us hope and let us pray that as we were able to get together here for this 50th anniversary, that we will have this chus, all of you assembled here, to get together, God willing, for the 60th anniversary. And as I came here from Israel to be with you for the 50th, you come to Israel to have the 60th day. My brother Jeff asked me I want to nominate my brother Asher to be the official host and chairman of the 60th reunion in Israel. If that will get you all to come, I'll gladly volunteer. Thank you very much again. It was a pleasure to meet all of you. And we took some pictures. Hopefully we'll take a few more that I'll be able to show it. Freddie Human, who had intended to be here, unfortunately one of his daughters burnt herself, and she was laid up for a couple of weeks, so he felt it was his duty to go to see how she is doing rather than coming here. I promised him that I will give him a full report when I get back to Israel. Thank you very much.